The winter air bit at Freya Lindström's cheeks as she trudged through the fresh snow toward her father's longhouse. The wind carried the scent of roasting meat and pine smoke from the village, where preparations for the midwinter feast were well underway. Her arms ached from carrying the bundle of scrolls and ancient texts her father had sent her to retrieve from the old skald who lived at the edge of their settlement. Freya adjusted the heavy fur around her shoulders, the wolf pelt a gift from her father after her mother's passing 3 winters ago. Osiris, her mother, had been respected throughout the fjords for her wisdom and connection to the gods. Now, as the daughter of Leif Lindström, one of the most feared and respected jarls of the northern lands, Freya was expected to follow a different path, to secure alliances through marriage, not through the ancient wisdom her mother had begun teaching her. "The gods have different plans for you," her father often said, though Freya suspected he merely wished to protect her from the mysteries that had consumed her mother in the end. As she approached the great longhouse, she spotted her father standing with the elders, their breath clouding in the cold air as they spoke in hushed tones. Something in their manner made her pause. "The Ravnssons have broken the peace," one of the elders was saying. "3 of our fishing boats attacked at dawn. 6 men dead." Her father's face hardened like the winter ice. "Then the blood feud is renewed. I will not let the blood of our people go unavenged." Freya's heart sank. The Lindströms and Ravnssons had maintained an uneasy peace for nearly 5 years, after generations of bloodshed. Her own cousin had been among the last to die before the truce was negotiated. "Blood calls for blood," her father declared, his voice carrying on the winter air. "We will raid their settlement when the moon wanes." Freya clutched the scrolls tighter to her chest. Violence begetting violence, the endless cycle her mother had warned against in her final days. "The feuds will consume us all if we cannot find another way," she'd whispered as life slipped from her body. That night, as the village celebrated the midwinter with mead and tales of glory, Freya sat beside her father at the high table, watching as warriors boasted of the vengeance they would take upon the Ravnssons. The skald sang of past victories, of honor won through blood and courage, and the hall roared its approval. "You are quiet tonight," her father said, his voice gentler when he spoke to her. "What troubles you, daughter? Is there no way to determine the truth of what happened before more blood is shed?" she asked. "Perhaps it was a misunderstanding." Leif's expression darkened. "The Ravnssons have hated our clan since before your birth. They take any opportunity to strike at us, misunderstanding or no. You must learn this, Freya. In this world, strength is the only language some understand. Mercy is seen as weakness, and weakness invites death." "And what of mother's teachings?" "She believed your mother lived in a world of dreams and visions," he cut her off, though there was sorrow beneath his harshness. "I loved her wisdom, but we live in the real world, where steel and courage matter more than omens." Freya fell silent, knowing better than to challenge her father before the clan. But his words confirmed what she had always feared, that he saw her mother's gifts as fantasies rather than wisdom. And perhaps he was right. What use were visions and ancient knowledge against swords and hatred? After the feast, while the village slept off the excesses of celebration, Freya retired to her small chamber adjoining the main hall. There, by the light of a single oil lamp, she unwrapped the scrolls the old skald had entrusted to her. "Your mother asked that these be given to you when the time was right," the old man had told her. "I believe that time has come." Most were written in languages she recognized from her mother's teachings, chronicles of clan histories, healing knowledge, and tales of the gods. But one book was different. Bound in leather so ancient it had hardened like wood, its cover bore markings unlike any she had seen before, not the runes of their people, but something older. When she opened it, the strange symbols seemed to shift before her eyes. She blinked, and suddenly the markings resolved into words she could understand, as if the book itself had decided to reveal its secrets. Her fingers trembled as she read the first lines: "When the blood of ancient enemies mingles in love instead of battle, the chains of fate shall break. The curse that binds the children of Raven and Wolf shall be lifted only when hearts unite what swords have sundered." The blood drained from Freya's face. Raven and Wolf, the symbols of the Ravnsson and Lindström clans. This was no ordinary book, it was a prophecy, perhaps written centuries before, speaking directly to the feud that had claimed so many lives. As she read further into the night, the book revealed the origins of the feud, a tale far different from the one passed down through generations. Not a story of betrayal and murder, but of a love forbidden, of jealousy and misunderstanding twisted through time into hatred. Sleep eluded her as the implications became clear. Everything her people believed about their enemies was built upon lies. When dawn broke, Freya concealed the book among her belongings and went about her duties. For 3 days, she said nothing as preparations for the raid continued. Warriors sharpened their axes and swords, shields were repaired, provisions gathered. But her mind raced with what she had learned and what she must do. On the eve of the raid, when most of the village was gathered in the great hall, Freya slipped away. Dressed in her warmest furs and with a small pack containing provisions, she took her father's fastest horse and rode toward the Ravnsson settlement under cover of darkness. She knew what awaited her if caught, at best, being returned to her father in disgrace, at worst, death at the hands of her people's enemies. But the weight of the knowledge she carried was heavier than her fear. The journey took her through dense forests and across frozen streams, the horse's breath clouding in the cold night air. By dawn, she had reached the outskirts of Ravnsson territory. She slowed her pace, knowing she would soon encounter sentries. It didn't take long. As she crested a small hill, 3 warriors emerged from the trees, weapons drawn. A Lindström, one spat, recognizing the wolf emblem embroidered on her cloak. And alone. Either very brave or very foolish. Freya raised her hands to show she carried no weapons. "I come under peace bond," she said, using the ancient phrase that offered temporary protection to messengers even between warring clans. "I bear important knowledge for your Jarl." The warriors exchanged skeptical glances, but tradition was strong. To harm a peace-bound messenger would bring the gods' displeasure. "Dismount," the leader commanded. "You will be brought before Jarl Ravnsson, but know this, one false move, and peace bond or no, you'll meet your ancestors today." Freya complied, allowing herself to be escorted into the settlement. Unlike her home, which nestled against a fjord, the Ravnsson village was built upon a hill overlooking vast plains, their longhouses arranged in concentric circles around a central hall. Villagers stopped to stare as she was led through their midst. Children pointed, women whispered behind their hands. Freya held her head high, though her heart pounded like a war drum. The great hall of the Ravnssons was smaller than her father's but no less imposing. Carved ravens adorned its peaked roof, their wooden eyes seeming to follow her as she was brought inside. There, seated upon a high chair adorned with furs, was Jarl Ravnsson, a broad-shouldered man with a silver-streaked beard and hard eyes. Beside him stood a younger man, tall and lean, his expression wary but curious. Something about him made Freya pause, perhaps the lack of immediate hatred in his gaze. "A Lindström girl comes to us on the eve of battle," the Jarl's voice boomed across the hall. "Speak your purpose before I lose my patience." Freya straightened her shoulders, channeling her father's authority. "I am Freya Lindström, daughter of Jarl Leif. I come with knowledge that concerns both our clans, knowledge that could end the bloodshed before it begins anew." "And what knowledge could a girl possess that would stop the justice we seek for our slain fishermen?" the Jarl demanded. "Your fishermen were not attacked by our people," Freya stated clearly. A murmur ran through the hall. The Jarl's eyes narrowed. "You deny that your warriors raided our fishing boats. 6 men dead, and you claim innocence." I do. My father plans to attack your settlement in retaliation for what he believes was your unprovoked assault on our hunting party 2 days prior. Confusion crossed the Jarl's face. We have launched no attacks on your people. The young man beside the Jarl stepped forward. Father, this matches what our scouts reported, signs of fighting near the western shores, but not by our hand. Freya's gaze met his, and something unspoken passed between them, a recognition, perhaps, that they both sought truth over vengeance. This is Wulfgar, my son and heir, the Jarl said, noticing their exchange. He counsels caution where I see only the pattern of generations, Lindström treachery. Wulfgar shook his head. If neither of our clans is responsible for these attacks, we must ask who benefits from reigniting our feud. The coastal raiders have grown bolder, Freya suggested. Perhaps they strike knowing each clan will blame the other. The Jarl considered this, his weathered face betraying little. A convenient explanation. Yet you rode here alone, risking much. Why? Freya hesitated, then reached into her pack and withdrew the ancient book. Because I discovered the truth about our feud, not just about recent attacks, but about its very origins. She opened the book, finding the passage that had first captured her attention. This text is ancient, written in a time when our clans were not enemies but allies. It speaks of a curse born not from betrayal, as we've been taught, but from a love forbidden. The Jarl scoffed, but Wulfgar stepped closer, his interest evident. What does it say? It tells of Freya Lindström and Sigrid Ravnssons, who loved despite their families' growing rivalries over trading routes. When they planned to marry, jealousy led to accusations of theft and dishonor. Misunderstandings became battles, battles became blood feuds. But the original cause was forgotten, replaced by tales of treachery on both sides. Convenient stories from a mysterious book, the Jarl said dismissively. Our sagas tell a different tale. Sagas change with each telling, Wulfgar countered, surprising Freya with his support. Father, we've lost too many to this feud already. If there's even a chance this is true, and if it's a trap, the Jarl demanded. The Lindström send this girl with her pretty tales while they prepare to attack from another direction. Freya stood her ground. I came without my father's knowledge or blessing. When he discovers I'm gone, he'll assume your people have taken me. This will only strengthen his resolve to attack. Her words hung in the air, the implication clear, she had placed herself in genuine danger by coming. Then we have little time, Wulfgar said, addressing his father but looking at Freya. Send scouts to investigate these coastal raiders. If they find evidence supporting her claims, we might prevent more bloodshed. After a tense silence, the Jarl nodded curtly. You have until midday tomorrow, he told Freya. If your words prove false, you will not leave here alive. As the hall emptied, Wulfgar approached Freya. Up close, she noticed his eyes were not the cold blue she expected, but a warm grey like storm clouds breaking. You've taken a great risk, he said quietly. No greater than the risk of more deaths over misunderstandings, she replied. He gestured toward the book she still clutched. May I? She hesitated only briefly before handing it to him. The writings appear differently to each reader, showing what they need to see. Wulfgar's expression changed as he opened the book, wonder replacing skepticism. This is written in a form of Elder Futhark I've only seen in the oldest stone carvings. He looked up at her. Where did you get this? It was my mother's. She was a seeress. Understanding dawned in his eyes. Hertha the Wise. I've heard tales of her visions. He returned the book with careful hands. You have her courage, it seems. Before Freya could respond, warriors entered to escort her to a small hut where she would be kept under guard until the scouts returned. Though not formally a prisoner, she understood the precaution. That night, sleep eluded her. The hut was comfortable enough, with furs for warmth and food provided, but anxiety kept her mind racing. Had she made a terrible mistake? What if the scouts found nothing? What if her father had already launched his attack? Near midnight, the door opened quietly, and Wulfgar slipped inside, a finger to his lips. "The sentries are changed," he whispered. "We have a few moments." "Why are you here?" Freya asked, wary despite their earlier rapport. "Because something about your story rings true," he admitted, settling on a stool across from her. "My grandmother used to tell different tales of how our feud began, not of betrayal, but of love turned to hate through misunderstanding." Freya's pulse quickened. "Then you believe me?" "I believe there is more to the story than either of our clans remembers." "The book you brought?" He hesitated. "I've seen its like once before, in a hidden chamber beneath our ancestral burial mound. Text said to contain the true histories, kept secret by those who feared what truths might do to power built on lies. Who would benefit from keeping our clans at war?" Wulfgar's expression darkened. "Those who would take our lands while we weaken each other. The southern kings who push ever northward. The eastern traders who profit from our divided strength." They talked through the night, discovering shared suspicions and hopes. Wulfgar revealed that he, like Freya, had questioned the wisdom of perpetual vengeance. As the firstborn son, he would one day lead his people, but toward what future, if not endless bloodshed? Dawn was breaking when a commotion outside interrupted their conversation. Wulfgar slipped out just before guards burst in. "Come," one ordered gruffly. "The scouts have returned." In the great hall, tension hung thick as fog. The scouts stood before the Jarl, their expressions grim. "We found the remains of a camp 2 leagues south along the coast," the lead scout reported. "Not our people, nor Lindström's. The markings on their abandoned shields bear the sea serpent of the Stlund raiders. And this proves what?" the Jarl demanded. "We captured one who stayed behind, wounded in some prior fight." Under questioning, he admitted their band has been raiding both our territories, disguising their attacks to look like our traditional markings. Murmurs rippled through the gathered crowd. Freya felt a surge of vindication, though it brought little joy. How many had died for this deception? The Jarl's hard gaze fixed on Freya. "It seems you spoke truth about the raids. But this changes little about generations of hatred between our clans." "With respect, father," Wulfgar interjected, "it changes everything. If we've been manipulated in this, what else might be lies?" Before the Jarl could respond, a horn sounded from the watchtower, the signal for approaching warriors. "Lindström's," someone shouted. "Coming from the North Ridge." Chaos erupted as warriors rushed to defend the settlement. Freya's heart sank. Her father had come sooner than expected, likely driven by her disappearance. "Take her to the holding pit," the Jarl commanded. "She may yet prove useful as a hostage." "No," Wulfgar countered, stepping between Freya and the guards. "If we show her as a captive, it will only inflame the situation. Let her speak to her father. If she truly came to prevent bloodshed, give her the chance to do so." After a tense moment, the Jarl nodded curtly. "Very well. But any treachery, and both your lives are forfeit." They hurried to the settlement's edge, where warriors were assembling in defensive positions. From her vantage point, Freya could see her father at the head of some 30 warriors, their shields bearing the wolf emblem of their clan. "Let me go to him," she urged. "Alone and unarmed. He won't attack if I'm in the open." Wulfgar looked ready to object, but instead nodded. Be careful. Not all warriors wait for orders before loosing arrows. With a deep breath, Freya stepped past the defensive line and walked into the open ground between the approaching force and the settlement. The winter sun glinted off spear points and shield bosses as she advanced, her heart pounding. She saw the moment her father recognized her, his expression shifting from grim determination to shock, then relief, and finally anger. Freya, he called, raising his hand to halt his warriors. He rode forward alone, his massive frame imposing even from horseback. What madness is this? Are you their prisoner? No, father, she replied, keeping her voice steady. I came willingly to prevent a mistake. The Ravnssons did not attack our hunting party. Leif's face darkened with fury. You betray your clan by coming here? Have you lost your mind? I found the truth, she countered. The coastal raiders have been attacking both our peoples, disguising their work to inflame our old hatred. The Ravnssons have proof, a captured raider who confessed. Her father's expression wavered between disbelief and uncertainty. And there is more, she continued, drawing the ancient book from her cloak. Mother's final gift to me. It contains the true history of our feud, not treachery, but love thwarted, turned to hatred through misunderstanding and the whispers of those who would see us destroy each other. More seer nonsense, he growled, though with less conviction. Not nonsense. Truth. She held the book toward him. See for yourself. After a long moment, Leif dismounted. Behind him, his warriors shifted uneasily. From the Ravnsson side, Freya sensed rather than saw Wulfgar moving closer, ready to intervene if needed. Her father took the book, his weathered hands almost gentle as he opened it. His expression changed as he read, disbelief giving way to recognition, then a deep, profound sadness. These are your mother's markings, he said quietly. Her hand is unmistakable. She knew the truth and tried to tell us, Freya replied. Now we have a chance to end this, father. Not through more bloodshed, but through understanding. Leif closed the book, his shoulders seeming to bear a new weight. And you believe this will end generations of hatred? Words in an old book. Not words alone, came Wulfgar's voice as he approached. Despite the tension, he carried no visible weapon. But truth, combined with the courage to act upon it. Leif's hand moved to his sword hilt, but Freya stepped between them. Father, this is Wulfgar Ravnsson. He too seeks an end to this feud. Their scouts have captured one of the true raiders who confessed to deliberately inflaming our hatred. The two men regarded each other with centuries of distrust between them. Then, slowly, Wulfgar extended his empty hand. Jarl Lindström, I would hear this raider's confession with my own ears before asking my men to shed blood or spill their own. It was a reasonable request, and a brave one, offering to accompany the leader of his clan's enemies to verify the truth. After a long moment, Leif gave a curt nod. 3 of my men will accompany us. The rest will maintain position here. What followed was a tense journey to where the captured raider was held. Under questioning from both Jarls, the man's story remained consistent. His band had been paid by merchants from the south to ensure the northern clans remained divided, making their territories easier to infiltrate for trade and eventual conquest. Divide and conquer, Wulfgar said grimly. An old tactic. Leif's face was thunderous as he turned to Freya. You were right to come here, he admitted, the words clearly difficult. Though your method was foolish and dangerous. Sometimes the gods leave us no easy paths, she replied, echoing one of her mother's favorite sayings. That evening, under a banner of truce, the leaders of both clans gathered in the Ravnsson Great Hall. The atmosphere remained tense, generations of hatred not easily set aside. But as the skalds from both clans compared their histories, inconsistencies emerged that supported the book's account. If what we've learned today is true, Jarl Ravnsson said eventually, then we face a common enemy who has manipulated us for generations. And what do you propose? Leif asked, skepticism evident. An alliance, Wulfgar suggested, beginning with a coordinated effort against these coastal raiders who prey upon both our peoples. Discussions continued late into the night. Freya found herself beside Wulfgar as the elders debated terms of cooperation. "You've accomplished what generations could not," he said quietly. "You should be proud." "The book accomplished it," she demurred. "I was merely its carrier. The book would have remained closed without your courage to open it and act on what you found." His hand moved subtly closer to hers on the bench they shared. "Few would risk what you did for peace. And fewer would have listened as you did," she replied, allowing her fingers to brush against his. "Your father would have been within his rights to execute me as an enemy. My father has lost too much to this feud already. My mother, 2 brothers." His voice trailed off. "As has yours." They sat in companionable silence for a moment before Wulfgar spoke again. "There's another passage in that book that you didn't share with the council," he said. "About the curse being lifted only when the blood of wolf and raven unites in love instead of battle." Freya felt heat rise to her cheeks. "You saw that?" "The book shows what needs to be seen," he reminded her with a small smile. Perhaps it knew its work was not yet complete. Before she could respond, the Jarls called for attention. The leaders had reached an agreement, a 3-month peace to test the possibility of cooperation, beginning with a joint expedition against the coastal raiders who had manipulated them. And to bind this agreement, Jarl Ravnsson announced, "We propose a marriage alliance between our houses." Freya's heart stuttered as all eyes turned toward her. Her father's expression was unreadable. "My son Wulfgar," the Jarl continued, "to be wed to Freya Lindström when the winter breaks, joining our bloodlines and ending the feud that has divided us for generations." The hall fell silent, waiting for Leif's response. Freya held her breath, suddenly aware of how much she wanted this, not just for peace, but for the connection she had felt with Wulfgar from their first meeting. Her father stood slowly, his gaze moving from Freya to Wulfgar and back. "My daughter has shown wisdom beyond her years today," he said finally. "If she consents to this union, the Lindströms will honor the alliance." All eyes turned to Freya. She rose, feeling the weight of history upon her shoulders. "The book speaks of healing old wounds through union," she said clearly. "I consent, not only for peace between our peoples, but for the future we might build together." The tension in the hall broke as warriors from both clans pounded their shields in approval. Even those most dedicated to the feud seemed relieved at the prospect of peace. Later, as arrangements were made for the Lindströms to depart with a promise to return for proper betrothal ceremonies, Wulfgar found Freya near the stables. "Was your consent given freely?" he asked, his voice low. "Or merely for duty?" Freya considered him in the torchlight, this man who had been her enemy by birth but had shown honor and courage when it mattered most. "Both," she admitted. "I believe in what we're doing for our people. But I also—" She hesitated, then continued with a directness valued by their culture. "I feel a connection to you that I cannot explain. Perhaps the gods have guided us together." Wulfgar's expression softened. "Since you opened that book, I felt it too, as if recognizing something I've always known." He reached for her hand, his touch warm despite the cold night air. "The sagas tell of souls who find each other across lifetimes. Perhaps we are writing a new saga now. Or perhaps," Freya suggested with a small smile, "we're fulfilling the oldest one." As spring thaw melted the winter snows, preparations for the wedding ceremony occupied both settlements. True to their agreement, the clans had worked together through the remaining winter months, successfully tracking and defeating the coastal raiders who had manipulated them for so long. With each cooperative hunt, each shared feast, each exchange of knowledge, the ancient hatred began to fade, not forgotten, but transformed into a cautious respect that grew stronger by the day. On the morning of her wedding, Freya sat as her father's sister arranged her hair with amber beads and silver threads. "Your mother would be proud," the older woman said softly. "She always said you would forge a different path." Freya touched the ancient book that now rarely left her side. "I think she knew, somehow, that this was my purpose." The ceremony took place at the sacred grove halfway between the two settlements, where ancient oaks created a natural cathedral. Both clans gathered, their traditional rivalry set aside as they witnessed the binding of hands with cords of wolf fur and raven feathers, symbols united instead of opposed. As Freya and Wulfgar spoke their vows before the gods and their people, she felt a weight lift from her shoulders, the burden of hatred carried through generations, finally set down. "The curse is broken," Wulfgar whispered as they completed the circle around the sacred oak, sealing their union. "Not broken," Freya corrected, squeezing his hand. "Transformed. As we all must be." Later, as both clans celebrated with feast and song, the ancient rivalry seemed to dissolve in shared mead and laughter. Warriors who had once sought to kill each other now competed in friendly contests of strength and skill. Under the stars, Wulfgar led Freya away from the festivities to a quiet hillside overlooking both their territories. "Look," he said, pointing to where the lights of both settlements twinkled in the distance. "No longer divided, but united. Our children will grow up knowing peace between wolf and raven." Freya leaned against him, feeling the steady beat of his heart. "The book has fulfilled its purpose," she said. "This morning, I found its pages had gone blank." Wulfgar looked at her in surprise. "All of them?" "All except the first page, which now bears just one line. What was written in hatred has been rewritten in love." He drew her closer. "Then we must ensure the new story is worthy of the sacrifice it took to write it." As they sealed this promise with a kiss, the northern lights danced across the sky, green and purple ribbons unfurling like a blessing from the gods themselves. Freya thought of her mother, of the wisdom she had passed down, and of the courage it had taken to break the cycle of vengeance. The forgotten legend had indeed come true, not through battle or blood, but through the courage to open an ancient book and believe in a different future. In the union of wolf and raven, a new saga had begun.